All right, welcome to the Varsity Voices. Dan, we're back with one of our preview and prediction episodes, and we like to call it our Prognosticus episodes,
Yes,
right?
after the mythical creature that predicts things.
Yes, the mythical
Yeah.
creature that predicts things. And I did want to ask you one question, Dan, first. So
Oh.
when you channel the Prognosticus, does it come to you in a voice, or is it hoots and screeches and those kinds of things? Because the Prognosticus, as we see it, looks like an owl, right?
Right. Yes.
Muscular owl.
Right. Of course. Of course it's muscular.
It's gotta
Right.
have muscles.
Yes. Yeah. It's hoots and screeches, taps, clicks. Yes. It sounds like a cross between an owl and a velociraptor from Jurassic Park. Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's kind of scary.
Oh, it's scary. That's why my interpretations are sometimes rushed and incorrect, because the Prognosticus is a little scary.
Yeah, you want to get him off the line.
Right.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Get out of my head.
Yeah. For me, he or she, well, I guess I think of it as a he, but sounds like an old Italian guy. See, you can imagine what that sounds like in my head, right?
It's like Dad. Is it Dad in your head?
Kind of like Dad. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Who knows a little bit about football, but you don't really want to take any predictions from Dad.
No, not with this. Not with this. We could do White Sox predictions with Dad.
Right. Exactly.
That's fun these days, right?
Yeah, a lot of fun. We could do a whole podcast, Dan, on the White Sox and how I'm feeling about them right now.
Yeah, we'd be one of 225 podcasts on the White Sox that on the worst team in the history of baseball. Anyway, we digress.
We do digress. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the important stuff.
Thank God.
We're gonna preview a little bit the games, and we're gonna give you our predictions again, and this week, Dan, we'll track them, right? And see how we do. Because
good, I'm glad we didn't do it last week. I know some people probably did, but oof, it was scary.
Yeah, over the past 2 weeks, I don't know. What do you think? We've been maybe 500.
No, we're better than 500. Yeah, we're better than 500. We've had some games that there've been some pretty predictably non-competitive games that were I don't know, right or wrong, but that were easy to predict. It was I should have thought that was St. Francis and Live for Life, but now I know. Now I know. Yes.
Yeah, the other thing, and maybe we don't have to talk about this now, and I hate to, denigrate any, high school who has a football team or any conference out there, but I did watch some of the film, the Noble Academy, who played. I'm trying to think who they played, but I don't think they should be allowed to be scheduled against any of the Chicago Catholic League teams.
Really? They played Marmion.
Marmion, right.
Yeah.
They're just not quite there, Dan. And, I was thinking about the ramifications of that. So I think the Noble Academy might be the best team in the Noble League, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I was thinking about the ramifications for playoffs, right? So, you beat one of the teams in that league. Either it's good or bad for you from a playoff point standpoint, because if the team is overly bad, then they don't win any games at all throughout the year. You get no points.
Right.
But if they're the best team in their division or in their league, then you're going to get a fair amount of playoff points for, playing a team that's not all that great.
Yeah. So do you know, Joe, there are some of these teams, and there's probably people who know that could help us with this, but aren't eligible for the playoffs, right?
Oh, right.
So there are teams that have a winning record that aren't eligible, but I'm wondering if you get playoff points for them.
Yeah, I don't know why you would schedule them if you don't get playoff points.
I think some of the thinking is that the interleague, play is so difficult, and that those teams perform so well. But yeah, I guess you could take it a step further. So if I'm a Catholic League school and playing another Catholic League school who's played one of these teams that aren't eligible for the playoffs for whatever reason, I don't know.
Right.
But do they get a point for that victory? Right. So if I'm playing you and you played a team that is ineligible, you beat that team. When I beat you, do I get a point for that?
Right.
Or do I not? Yeah. So
I don't know. You know what? Let's table that, Dan, or let's put it in the parking lot, because that's going to be a great episode for after the season is over.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yep, that's a good one.
So everybody come back and listen sometime end of November, maybe beginning of December, and we'll cover that in detail, right?
Yeah.
When we've got it all figured out.
Yeah. Right.
All right.
Now we just got our hands full with Prognosticus.
Right. And so
and broadcasts.
And broadcasts, yeah, right. This week it should be a little bit easier, right? We only have, 12 games going on. They're all Friday games this week, Dan. No Saturday games.
We start to settle in.
Yeah, and probably, we should probably mention that Loyola Academy, having put in lights this past summer and having their first Friday night game ever at Loyola Academy. So that'll be a momentous occasion for them.
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to be really fired up, and that's going to be an awesome atmosphere. I know that, in their case and in all cases where some of these schools have tried to put in lights or would like to put in lights, it can be a bit of a struggle, from a political standpoint to what you have in the area and where you're playing currently, and some of the rules of the town. So I'm happy for Loyola. I'm happy for the kids. Everyone associates high school football with Friday nights. I hated that Northwestern played last Friday night. I think it's encroaching on the high school football season.
Yeah,
and so Friday nights is for high school.
Yeah, you can have any other nights you want. Go Thursday, go Saturday, go Sunday.
Go Tuesday. Didn't the MAC do Tuesday Maction? I think
they
that's
did. They did.
Yeah, they can have it.
They can have it. Yeah. Friday nights, you're right, reserved for high school football and high school football only.
Right.
All right. So
and the Blitz
Friday night. What'd you say?
The Blitz, the Friday Night Blitz.
Friday Night Blitz, yeah.
There you
go. To tune in. Friday Night Blitz
tomorrow
night, 9 o'clock. So first game, Dan, is Brother Rice against St. Rita. This is at Brother Rice. Now, Brother Rice lost in a heartbreaker, right? 34-27 in overtime to Marist last week in the Battle of Pulaski. St. Rita was shut out by Mount Carmel 28-0, which was a little bit surprising to me. Both of these teams are good enough, right? And we've seen that. They're both ranked in the top 25 now in Illinois. Brother Rice won last year against St. Rita 42-21. The Brother Rice quarterback, CJ Gray, with a really good game last week. He over 175 passing yards, couple of TDs. Running back Tyler Lofton was kind of held a bit in check in that game. What do you think? What do you think about this game, Dan? I mean, I feel like there's two, very evenly matched teams here, and wondering what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, so no breath for either one of these teams after two highly emotional games that they point to, their fans point to year in and year out, whether it's Brother Rice Marist, St. Rita Mount Carmel. I thought it was interesting that St. Rita was shut out, and we know that St. Rita's, kind of focus has been the running game, right? And right. So it was I thought it was interesting to see that, because of that, well, maybe that played into Mount Carmel's strengths, and we'll talk more about Mount Carmel next. But I'll be interested to see what kind of balance they can get, and if they can be strong enough running the football against Brother Rice. And for Brother Rice, it's all about that overcoming adversity, right? That you had a devastating loss. Can you park it and put it where it goes? Learn from it and move on. To face a really tough opponent the next week. So, like I said, no breathers. So that's the biggest challenge, I think. St. Rita's on the field, trying to find some offense where they can move the football consistently, and can Brother Rice bounce back from a really, really tough emotional loss?
Yeah, for Brother Rice, hopefully, they've instituted the 24-hour rule, right? To where, all right, yeah, we lost. Think about it, churn it over in our minds for the next 24 hours, and then we forget about it, right? Because next week we've got St. Rita coming up.
Yeah, which is another, you can consider this a rivalry game, right? Two schools pretty close to one another. Kids can choose and go to either one. So it's important for these schools.
Yeah, and the Rita offense, obviously they didn't score any points against Mount Carmel, but we know what the Mount Carmel defense looks like. But I think in order for St. Rita to really, to win this game, right, or be in this game, they're really going to have to get Nick Herman back on track, their running back, and run the ball. That's not going to be easy against Brother Rice either. So, they may have to, they may have to resort to the passing game as well, which I think they'll probably try and be a little more balanced this week. But I don't know, that Rita offense, which I thought was much better than putting up no points against Mount Carmel. They've got to get back on track this week against Brother Rice.
Yeah, not easy, right? Christian Pierce at linebacker, and King Liggins is D lineman, Braden Parks, Connor Stack at safety. So Brother Rice has got a really strong defense. Joe, my prediction is going to be that Brother Rice wins this game. But I also think it's going to be similar to their game last week against Marist from a score perspective. Could come down to the last score. Could be an overtime game. I think it might be that kind of a game for Brother Rice and St. Rita. I just think that it kind of shapes up that way, and I think it will come down to how effective St. Rita can be passing the ball.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't think they're going to be effective enough though, and I'm going to go with Brother Rice too in this game, Dan. So we're in sync as far as this game is concerned. So I've marked that down.
All right.
Dan, Joe, Brother Rice.
Okay, got it.
All right, so let's.
Our correspondents from St. Rita are not going to be happy with us.
No, they are not. But I don't know. We love good games. So.
Yeah.
Right. So if it comes down to something else, we're not upset about it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I root for the good games. Yep.
Right. All right, so let's go, and we'll stick with the blue division, and I don't know. This game maybe best game in the state this week. Mount Carmel and Nazareth, Dan.
Yeah, that's a big one, and this one is going to be, Joe, as these weeks go on, and now we get into conference play, you really start to get an idea of teams' strengths and weaknesses. So we thought perhaps Mount Carmel's defense might be a little suspect after week one, right? But that team, Hun, is what we found is loaded. But it was their pass defense that was the issue. And Nazareth's strength, in my opinion, is their passing offense. And they also play really tough defense. They can get after the quarterback. So, I think this might be a good matchup for Nazareth. And I think I think we'll start to, when I talk about narrowing down, we'll really start to narrow down on Mount Carmel's, defense. I know their offense is great. I think the world of their quarterback.
Yeah.
But Nazareth with Logan Malachuk, is they are a great big play passing game. And so this game's going to be really interesting, and rightly so that it's one of the games of the week.
Yeah, for sure. And, I'm with you, Dan. I think if you were to point to any weakness from Mount Carmel's standpoint on their defense, maybe you would point to their pass defense.
Right.
Just because of what we saw, the Hun High School from New Jersey was able to do against them. And if you look at the strength of Naz and what they've been able to do in the passing game with Logan Malachuk. I think he threw for almost 250 yards in just the first half last week, Dan. His primary targets were wide receivers, I think, or I know, James Penley, Trenton Walker, 6 TDs, maybe all passing. I would have to look that up, but, I think that might spell a little bit of trouble for Mount Carmel.
Ooh, all right. How much? Enough to make a pick that maybe goes against the grain?
You know what? I am going to go against the grain on this, and I'm going to pick Nazareth to. And I would say this would probably be an upset, although they're both outstanding teams. But I'm going to pick Naz over Mount Carmel in this game, Dan.
All right, so I'm going. Although I think this is going to be a really close game, I am going to go with Mount Carmel because they have. I still believe they're the best team I've seen. Now, so that's limited, but even in the loss, I thought they were outstanding. All over the place, great players at every level. So I am going to pick Mount Carmel for this one, Joe.
All right. So we differ on that pick. All right. So that's good. It's going to be a great game. I can't wait to watch it tomorrow. And for those of you out there listening, make sure you tune in to Friday Night Blitz tomorrow at 9 p.m., and we'll give you all the updates on the Mount Carmel Nazareth game.
Yeah, we'll be all over it.
We'll be all over it for sure. And all right, now we've got St. Ignatius against IC Catholic. So St. Ignatius, tough loss last week to Fenwick, 34-24. IC was idle last week, Dan, which I don't know. Do you think that hurts them coming up in this week, having not played a game last week?
I'm gonna go a little different, Joe. I think it's gonna help them. I think they had 2 weeks to prepare. If you're going to defend the triple option, it's assignment football, so you've got to practice that over and over. One of the benefits for the teams that run the triple option is that with only 1 week to prepare, they have a hard time getting there. And so you're almost guaranteed to get mistakes, which is, right. But I think I see now, having had a couple weeks to prepare, I think Joe, and I don't know where you're at on this, but I think that's going to make the difference in this, which is why I'm going to pick IC in this game.
All right. Well, I'm sure IC has seen the film, right, of Ignatius playing Fenwick and what Fenwick was able to do to kind of stifle the Ignatius offense in the second half. I think they held them to only 7 points in the second half. But this game is at Ignatius. I think due to the loss last week against Fenwick, I think Ignatius regroups this week, and I'm picking Ignatius in this game, Dan, to beat IC.
All right.
I think sitting on the sidelines last week, I know they had 2 weeks to prepare now, but I think that's going to have something to do with it. Ignatius is a little bit more battle-tested at this point, and I think that's going to put him over the top.
Yeah, I
So
like it. I like IC's defense with their strength of their team is the linebackers from
yeah.
Hulak to Calcagno. I think that's where the difference lies in this. So that's part of my thinking going with IC.
All right. Well, you can't go wrong there. I'm with you on that too, Dan. All right. So the next game in the Blue Division, this is Loyola against St. Francis, Dan. And again, as we mentioned earlier, Loyola, their first game under the lights, home game under the lights at Loyola since their inception. So it's going to be rocking there, isn't it? On
Oh
Friday.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's going to be rocking. It's going to be loud. Joe, having coached there, it's loud anyway. I mean, not only the fans, but the highway. Right behind you. It's a tough place to play. For that reason, it's a tough place to coach. So I think it's going to be an awesome atmosphere. I think Loyola is going to be ready. My question is how hurt is Fitzgerald? And I know they said it was precautionary, but ankles can be funny. It can feel a little better, and but it can easily be tweaked again. He likes to run the football,
Right.
and if he's hobbled in any way, obviously they've got more than capable back in McPherson who can carry the load, but it will be interesting to see how, if at all, if he's hampered. So I think that's something to look at early in that football game.
Yeah, and when he did go out with a bit of an injury there, their sophomore quarterback stepped right in. I think he threw 3 touchdown passes.
Yeah,
And so
Don Maloney.
yeah, Don Maloney. He's not, obviously he's not Ryan Fitzgerald, but with everything else around him on the offense, especially the offensive line, and then the weapons they've got, and their tight end and Loftus and McPherson and the running back as their running back. You've got a lot of weapons there for Loyola, and St. Francis. I think now they're 2-0, right? They had a 42-0 win over Live for Life Academy last week. I think you picked Live for Life, didn't you, Dan? Can you say that? Can you say whether
I
you
can say that. We already went down that path, Joe.
I didn't realize that.
Right, like the Marist and Brother Wright. I'd like to flush that. I lived with him for 24 hours. I really want to just put that in the parking lot. I think, as you said. Oh no, that was for something else. But I want to flush it. Flush that game. Yeah,
so
flush it.
Forever. Although it's on tape now, Dan. I don't know if we can do that. I can edit it out if you want me to.
Perfect. But please do. Yeah, please do. So, St. Francis, what I liked about their game last week is they became more balanced, right? Yes. And I think early on when we did the early looks at these teams, we thought they might lean on Tyvon Ransom for early on while they, broke in a new quarterback, had some other new guys in positions, Gavin Mueller at tight end. Last week they threw the ball. They were a lot more successful throwing the ball. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes together against Loyola. However, that being said, Joe, I think one of the things that everyone knows about Loyola is their incredible depth, not only at quarterback, but everywhere. They could come at you in waves, of players. And so that's what I think is going to be the difference in this game, is just a depth perspective, an advantage that Loyola will have over St. Francis. So my pick is for Loyola this week.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I'm, you and I have talked about this a little bit, but, I'm convinced that Loyola is a little vulnerable on the edges, right? But and speed out on the edges, and I'm not sure St. Francis has enough of that, right? That's what I would do if I were coaching. I'd be like, let's try and get out on the edges as much as we can and see what happens. But St. Francis has got their top running back in Tyvon Ransom. He's obviously a dynamic player. we'll see what they do with him in this game in trying to attack Loyola's defense. But I honestly think even though St. Francis will be a tougher opponent for Loyola this week versus Glenbar West last week, I don't think they have quite enough firepower to hang with Loyola. So I'm going with Loyola as well on this, Dan.
Okay.
All right.
Mark it down.
I'm marking it down right now. I'm writing it in pencil on my loose leaf paper. Pencil
is key.
All right, so let's go to actually the way we're covering this is we're covering all the teams that are playing at home, and obviously they're playing another team within the CCL. So let's go to the Orange Division, Dan, and we've got Marist and Montini.
Yeah, orange versus white this week in the division breakdowns. Yeah, blue versus green, which we just covered. Orange versus white is next. So the Marist Montini, that is I'm not going to say what kind of game it could be. It's not a trap game. I don't believe in it.
So would you say a trap game for Marist is a bit of a letdown from winning last week? Okay. All right.
Yeah, and I always think, and I do believe this, that you have games where you're just not up. If you ever want to see a scared group of grown men and coaches, men and women and coaches in general, see them before a game when they can tell during warmups that their team is flat. Yeah. And nothing they can do from yelling, screaming, pulling the captains aside, saying, you better get these guys going, and whatever it takes to try, and you see coaches doing circus tricks to try and get their team fired up sometimes, and sometimes it's just not there. The juice isn't there.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that's going to happen for sure with Marist, because they have to be really careful because they got a really good team coming in. And
so what are you saying is going to happen?
Well, as far as a prediction, Joe, I'm going to go. I'm riding the Broncos a little bit. So,
that's a good way to put it. Right?
Yeah, that's no dummy here.
T-shirt. That's a T-shirt.
Yeah. Right. And so I'm going to call for. I'm going to guess what maybe the top 25 would say is an upset. And I think Montini's got a great shot. It is a team that has got a ton of talent, really good defensively, big up front, experienced. I think they will be flying high regardless, right? They are going to be flying high, even though it's at Marist, which is well documented on this podcast, that I think is the toughest place to play in the conference. I'm going to pick Montini, and with like a 1 point. I think Marist again could be in a last possession overtime type game.
Yeah, I think maybe defense wins this game, Dan.
Yeah.
I really do. And Montini's defense, led by their linebacker Vince Arion and their defensive lineman J.C. Hayes. Montini's recorded 2 shutouts, right?
Yeah.
In their first 2 games. Now, obviously, the level of competition goes up here against Marist. But I believe that there's something to the letdown after such a big win that Marist had against Brother Rice in the Battle of Pulaski. So even though Marist has a ton of talent, obviously on both sides of the ball, I think I'm going with what might be considered the upset too, and I'm agreeing with you on this, Dan, that Montini comes out with a win over Marist this week.
Wow. All right. Well, we both have it on the line this week with Montini. It's if people want to watch great D-line play, go to this game, because you've got our dog of the week, Fitzgibbon with Marist, and that whole defensive crew played great. You've got the defensive players that you mentioned, and J.C. Hayes, big week last week. They're really, like I said, really big in the middle, and so I think this is going to be a a great week to watch defensive line play for those of us that really like to watch the line when we go to football games.
Right. How many people is that, Dan? You think in the stands who really like to watch the line? It's parents.
Offensive and defensive line coaches plus the linemen's parents.
Exactly. Yeah, but you mentioned J.C. Hayes, the defensive lineman for Montini. He made the dog pound last week. Right?
Yeah, he was in the pound. Yeah.
He was in the pound. All right.
Right there, barking at the door to get in, to be the dog.
All right,
yeah.
We'll see what he does this week. He's going to have a big game, right, in order for your and my predictions to come true this week. And that's we're both riding the Bronco. We're picking Montini over Maris.
All right.
So the next game here, Dan, is Joliet Catholic and Fenwick. So Fenwick started off 2-0 this year.
Yeah.
Last week they beat St. Ignatius 34-24. Which is a big win for them. I think them and Ignatius see themselves as kind of special rivals, right? Over the past couple of years. Joliet Catholic had a tough time last week against Oswego. Joliet Catholic won game 1 against Oswego. They get shut out against Oswego, Dan, 28-0.
Yeah, that was a shock, and the fact that they got shut out, and I don't know if exposed is the right word, but I've talked about my feeling on I think the option grinded out offense can be great. It is obviously you see several teams. Joliet Catholic's a great example. How many state championships they have doing that style of offense. The one thing is that it's tough to come back. I feel like it is tough once you get a couple scores down. That you've got to do something that's uncomfortable. I don't know if that's the case this week. I don't know if that's how the game will play out. I kind of see it playing out that way, though, Joe. I think Fenwick is a team on the rise. Cracking the top 25 this week. I think there's a chance that they're a really good football team. And so while it's at Joliet Catholic, Joe, my pick is going to be for Fenwick this week to beat Joliet Catholic.
All right. Well, I like that pick, Dan. I mean, like you mentioned, Joliet Catholic, they want to run the ball and they want to run it a lot. But what we saw last week from Fenwick and their defense, Fenwick's run defense is very good. You've got Nate Marshall, defensive lineman, right up front, right in your face in every play that you run. You've got their linebacker as well, who's a really good player. And I think Fenwick's defense is going to be a little bit too much for Joliet Catholic this week. And I think they're going to force Joliet Catholic to try and pass the ball, which is, we know that's something they know that about themselves as well, that, maybe we're not the best pass offense in the world. But, I think most teams, if they feel like they can get Joliet Catholic into a situation where they've got to pass, that they feel like they've got them on the ropes. And, I think that's what Fenwick is going to do this week. So I'm going with Fenwick too, Dan. Maybe considered another upset here.
Yeah, and I think Fenwick, when I watched them and watched Oswego, they kind of reminded me of one another. I mean, and Nate Marshall's a force on either side of the ball,
right.
So sure. He's quite simply one of the best players in the country. So he's a handful and a game wrecker on both sides of the ball. So I mean, it's really a challenge, and so I think Joliet Catholic's got their hands full this week.
Yeah, I do too. All right, so we're both going with Fenwick on that game. So let's move to the next one, and that's Providence against Carmel. Providence 1-1, had a win last week against Lincoln Way Central. I think the score was 23-14. In a bit of a surprise, and you watched a fair amount of this game last week, but Carmel lost to Lake Forest 24-14. How surprised were you in that result, Dan?
I was surprised, but I knew Lake Forest had been a good program for several years. I felt like Carmel was knocking on the door to elite programs. Um, they didn't play great, last week, and I think they came out and said that afterwards. So
Yeah.
I think this is kind of a get back on track or prove it type game for Carmel at Providence. But not an easy opponent to do that. It's not like, hey, we're going to get back on track against Providence, because that's much easier said than done.
Right.
So this is a great game. This is a great game with two teams that are 1-1. Both really need it. The schedule does nothing but get tougher, and
Right. Yep.
you can. I think you talked, Joe, about what practices are like during the week for some of these teams, whether they're coming off a loss or how. I bet practice was intense at both these schools this week, because there are this is where the Catholic League really, it's almost like playoff football every week, because it's that important, because the schedules are tough, and obviously as a coach, you want your players to be focused on that week, but the schedule's everywhere, and when you start looking at, we talked about, you got to stack some wins, and it can get away from you in a hurry, where you can be looking at 4-4, 4-5, and really sweating it. So it's going to be a great game. Hard for me to pick. I'm trying to talk my way into this.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. And I'm going to go, John, going with the home team. And I think they're evenly matched. I think Providence's strength is, one of their strengths is their DBs.
Yeah.
I think they do really well. So I think they could be forcing Carmel into maybe some mistakes again. So that's my pick is for Providence this week.
All right, you picked Providence, yeah, and I watched a little bit of the game video for this, and I felt like Carmel's quarterback Trey Taylor, outstanding player. He's only a sophomore, so he's still growing, in my opinion. But he had a decent game. The offense was able to move the ball. They just could not get it in the end zone.
Yeah.
Right? Against Lake Forest. So, I think he's probably he is gonna have some growing pains. But with each and every game that he plays like this, he's gonna learn. And I think he's probably learned enough. And like you said, the practices this week at Carmel were probably pretty intense, getting ready for this game against Providence. I hate picking against the home teams all the time, but I'm gonna pick Carmel in this game, Dan, again over Providence. And again, I'm gonna piss off my friends from Providence who are listening in, but I just think Carmel's going to have a big bounce back here against Providence, and I think they're going to score a lot of points. So
do you? Okay.
I'm going with Carmel here. So
all right.
So you've got Providence, I've got Carmel. All right, marking that down. Okay, let's go to the next game, Deanne, and this is Notre Dame against St. Lawrence. This is at Notre Dame, and St. Lawrence with a big win last week, 42-7 over Evanston. So they've started out 2-0 this season. Notre Dame as well had a nice win against a really good Sterling team. They won 17-0 last week to go 2-0 as well. What do you think about one of the things? Let me put it this way: one of the things that I feel like Notre Dame is having a little bit of trouble scoring points.
Yeah.
Their defense seems really good, right? Really solid. And, you put a post out there on X this week about Notre Dame's defense. And, some of the guys on that side of the ball for Notre Dame, future dogs of the week for sure, right? But I'm a little concerned about their offense.
Yeah, I think there might be a couple teams. It's hard to say in the Catholic League about this, that there might be teams that are underrated. But Joe, when I think about that, I think St. Lawrence is one of those teams. The fact that they're not in the top 25 this week is I think they're using it. I think them and I think Montini might both be pinning up the some of the top 25s out there. Maybe the one I'm thinking about is the Sun Times top 25, and I think St. Lawrence might be really good. I think the way that they want to play, they want to kind of grind it out. Now we talked to their coach, Adam Nissen, who said they're hoping for some more big plays, but their transfer quarterback Chase Kwiatkowski can really run. Harley Riz, we've talked about a few times, can really run. So I think they are going to have probably too much offensively for Notre Dame. So even if Notre Dame's defense is really good, I think that St. Lawrence still puts up a few scores where I think Notre Dame is still trying to find their way offensively. They were great on special teams last week, which is a big deal. I don't know that they can rely on that against St. Lawrence. So that's why, even though it's a great 2-0 versus 2-0, I'm going with the visitor this week. So I'm taking St. Lawrence over Notre Dame, Joe.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that, Dan. I think St. Lawrence has actually too much offense right here.
Yeah.
Even though Notre Dame's defense is really solid, I think from a standpoint of who's going to be able to put more points on the board, and that's what obviously the games come down to. I think St. Lawrence has the ability to do that more so than Notre Dame does. So I'm picking St. Lawrence as well.
All right, game. So we're both with St. Lawrence in that, and Joe, that wraps up our orange look playing white this week. So that's 4 divisions covered. Boy, this goes fast when we don't have 24 games to cover. It's nice. Yeah.
It is nice. So, that takes us to the, let's see, our last division, Dan, which is the red division, which is all home.
Yeah.
This week.
Red and purple. Red versus purple.
Red versus purple. And the first game here is Marmion versus St. Viator. Both teams 2-0. St. Viator's 2-0. They've really racked up a lot of points in those 2 games. I think they had 62 in their first game, 41 last week against Hyde Park. Now, obviously, the competition was not as stiff as what they're going to see from here on out. So I'm not sure if they've really been tested as of yet. But Marmion's going to provide them a pretty good test, I think, from a standpoint of, Marmion's defense. Last week, Marmion's defense, I think, scored 3 touchdowns, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, St. Viator's got their work cut out for them this week against Marmion.
Yeah, I watched some clips, some highlights of St. Viator. Davion Ellis looks awesome.
Really good.
He looks like a Big Ten receiver to me. So I think that that combination with Davion Ellis and Komet, that's something that everyone should be watching, to see how that develops, becoming one of the better combos in high school football this year. But Marmion's feisty. I think when I see them play, that's how they seem to me. They're a feisty group. They like to run the football. They have capable guys of doing that. Brian Scales and Michael Roche. So they do a really nice job of Joey Favia. So I mean they've got a really strong running game. So it'll be interesting to see how St. Viator stepping up in competition, both of these teams, but doing that. But I think that the easy thing to say maybe for a lot of people or within the conference or people who follow it might be St. Viator. They've got bigger names. I don't think it's going to be easy by any stretch. I'm picking St. Viator,
Right.
but I think that is, I think it's an experience thing. So that's why I'm going with St. Viator. But I think Marmion's feisty and it's going to give him a little bit of a game.
Yeah, I think Marmion's feisty too. This is going to be a different game for both of these teams, and I think it's going to tell us a lot, Dan, about where both of these teams are at, and as far as the rest of the season is concerned. Because to be honest, they haven't played very tough competition in their first 2 games, so I'm really interested to see this game and see the outcome of this game, to see where each of these teams kind of fits in the CCL and in their divisions, as far as how things look for them both going forward. But, I also think that St. Viator probably has a little too much here from an offensive standpoint. They've got a little too much offensive power for Marmion to be able to contend with. So I think that now this game is at Marmion. Oh, by the way, I looked at some of the footage. Love Marmion's field facility, their athletic facility. It looks awesome.
Yeah, it's a cool place to watch a game. I was just there for the scrimmage week, and I really enjoyed it. It's kind of a nice open space. It's got a really nice field. Their colors are cool. It definitely, it's going to be really, really kind of a cool view this week from a pageantry perspective.
Yeah,
so,
it will.
Yeah.
It will. Yeah, but I'm with you on this one, Dan. I'm going to pick Viator over Marmion in this game. So, but I'm really interested to see the outcome of this game and see, some of the details of the game as far as how the teams played on both offense and defense, and I think that'll help me and you, right, going forward, to as far as what we think these teams are going to be able to do, for the rest of their schedule.
Yeah, and it's gonna start to kind of play out where, you can figure out what the divisions are going to look like and what those games are going to stack up like, once we get into divisional play, which is kind of sprinkled in here, but like I talked about early on, you're able to narrow your focus a little bit as far as any sort of analysis on these teams.
Yeah, all right, for sure. And so here we go. We're at De La Salle, who is home. They're hosting Bennett Academy this week. So Bennett 2-0, De La Salle 1-1. Bennett has looked pretty impressive to me, Dan, on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, they scored 49 points last week in their that was their win over Moline.
That was last week.
Oh, yeah, that was last week. So it was 49-29 win over Moline. A couple of players really stepping up on the Bennett side, on the offensive side of the ball, like Rogowski, some receivers as well. The Doyles, I think, as you've called
the
them.
Lukes. The Lukes,
not the
right.
Doyles. The Lukes.
Although the Doyles are a family that could have multiple players every year. They've been at Bennett forever, so.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm always slightly off. You know that about me. I think our listeners are starting to figure that out too.
Just a tick.
Just a tad bit off.
Yeah, Joe. How about De La Salle? Their scores. So they win. Was it 64?
64-0 against Foreman.
Right.
Yeah,
64-0 against Foreman, and then their loss. Let me just make sure I have that right here. They lost 45-0 to Argo. So, one of the things, and I watched those games, and I said this early on about De La Salle, they're playing a lot of guys both ways.
Right.
And you mentioned Marty Rogowski for Bennett. Now, he's playing both ways, but they don't have nearly as many. They've got guys sprinkling in kind of on both sides of the ball. Doyle does a little bit. Declan Walsh, maybe a little, but De La Salle is relying on a lot of guys to really never come off the field. Now they're talented guys. I like how a couple of their running backs carry the football. They're big up front on the offensive line. So got a nice linebacker, but all those guys are doing a couple different things, and so that's a challenge for them. But I'm going to pick Bennett this week. So I think that they just have too much, and again, it's going to be a depth thing. Not that Bennett has a huge numbers advantage, but I think they have more depth than De La Salle this week, and that's probably going to play out on the field.
I think so too, Dan. I think, and Bennett's offense seems to be really clicking over the first two games here, and I think that's probably going to continue against De La Salle. I know it's at De La Salle. I think Bennett won this game last year, right, against De La Salle.
Yeah, in a close game.
Yeah, probably closer than people might have thought it was going to be. But, I think Bennett, from an offensive standpoint, is really clicking and has a little bit too much for De La Salle to contend with. So I think Bennett wins this game as well, Dan, at De La Salle. And that's tomorrow night at 7:00. So we'll be watching that one too and reporting on that Friday Night Blitz.
Yeah, De La Salle had a really nice broadcast, so we should get that one pretty clearly.
All right, so that takes us to the next game, and that is Leo, who is home against St. Patrick this week. So, unfortunately for Leo, they've started off, it's been a rough start for them. They've started 0-2. They lost to Amundsen last week, 13-12. St. Patrick, on the other hand, got back on track last week against Larkin. I think they put up 39 points, and they also shut out Larkin. So, from St. Patrick's standpoint, it was a really good week, both offensively and defensively. And I think Leo just is having a tough time, obviously, and it doesn't get any easier with them now having to face St. Patrick this week. Yeah,
Leo's. I think finding their way is kind of where they're at in their program right now. I do think they're on a good path, but this conference and is just finding your way. Just unfortunately is not a great spot to be in this conference. And so maybe they will see some success. At some point but I feel like they're waiting to turn a corner, and it's a tough spot to be in this conference. So, because of that, because of how St. Pat's has looked, gave Notre Dame a great game week 1, dominated Larkin week 2. I'm going to go with Pats in this game, Joe. I just think I think they're too much for Leo.
Yeah, I think so too, Dan. I'm going with St. Pat's too in this game. I think one of the things that bodes well for them in this game and hopefully going forward for them is they seem to have found their offense last week against Larkin. Larkin isn't the toughest opponent, but anytime you can put 39, 40 points on the board, you've found something from an offensive standpoint. So that's good for St. Patrick because their defense is really stout. So I'm going with St. Pat's as well in this game.
All right, so that brings us, Joe, to our last game of the evening. Is
our last game?
Yeah. Go ahead. Marian Catholic, and DePaul Prep.
Yeah, this would be
at Marian
too.
Yeah, at Marian Catholic. So down there, I've got to say this every time because when I first said it, it keeps me up. I put them in the wrong suburb. So Chicago Heights, Marian Catholic. DePaul Prep is going to head down there and play at another great venue. We believe the press box is gone, so
awesome.
someone won't have to navigate the press box from hell. Yeah,
I'm not going there. I'm never going there again. So
yeah. Not in the press box, anyway.
Not in the press box.
No. Yeah, we do have to go because there's good food there.
That's right.
Yeah, right. we've got food and ice cream, I think, or Italian ice to try it at Marian Catholic. Right. Yeah, DePaul Prep. They look to be fulfilling kind of what we thought when we first talked to their coach over the summer, and and their team on the rise. So I think that is, that is seems to be coming to fruition with them. They've played really well. They've had 2 good wins. They've got they're playing complementary football is what I would say. So Marian Catholic, they've also been one of these teams that win 25-0 against Richton Park, and then get shut out against Homewood Flossmoor. I think Coach Lopez at Marian thought that they might be more defensive oriented this year to start out. Having some new faces offensively that they're trying to break in. So I think DePaul Prep has an edge this week. I think that they are, with Juju Rodriguez, quarterback, and Braden Peavy. I think they look really, really good with and then defensively Jet Reese. So they've got good people in good positions, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. Complete sense.
They've got difference makers at the positions you need difference makers at. So that's kind of playing out in the early part of the season. So for those reasons, Joe, I'm going to go with DePaul Prep this week at Marian Catholic, which is my 4th pick. And I don't know if you agree or not, but I've picked all the visitors in these games.
Yeah, that's interesting. This week, we're much more visitor-oriented than we are home-oriented, where I think last week it was completely the opposite. But, Marian they're going to have to figure out how to score some points this week, Dan. I know they scored 25 points against Rich Township in their first game, but last week, as you mentioned, they got shut out against Homewood Flossmoor, who's a good team, right? But
one of the surprises.
Yeah, you would think Homewood Flossmoor every time they scored 35 points against Marian, but and that's what you think about when you think of Homewood Flossmoor is their offense. You don't necessarily think about their defense all that much, and for them to shut out Marian, was a little bit of a surprise to me, and it makes me a little concerned about Marian's offense. So. I'm, watching DePaul Prep again. Another team. We mentioned a couple of the teams. I think maybe earlier we were talking about Fenwick, team on the rise. DePaul Prep, same thing. I feel like they've got everything kind of going for them right now. They're 2-0, coming off a big win. And I think they're going to keep rolling here, and they're going to come out with a win, even though they're traveling out to Chicago Heights. I think DePaul Prep comes out with a win against Marian Catholic this week as well.
All right, so we are in agreement on the red versus the purple.
Yeah, we are, and I'm looking at our predictions that we made, Dan, and. Let's see, we've got that's different, that's 2, that's 3. We've got 3 where we've predicted something different. So that's what makes it interesting for us, right? Especially tomorrow night, Friday Night Blitz, Dan. And we're gonna be watching all the games, right?
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. We're going to shout out for correspondence again. We've got some that have been pretty good, very good the first few weeks of giving us information. We want more people. Just come and check in. Send us notes on social media, whether it's X or Instagram, wherever you visit your social media, go ahead and send us some notes or get on the broadcast. Contact us, have the students contact us. If you know of a school that has a broadcast or media club whatever it might be. This is great experience for those students. They can come on the air. They can get on for a few minutes, really quick, give us an update. It makes it more fun for all of us and builds a lot of interest. So hopefully a lot of people watch. They're getting something out of it. We have fun with it, and go ahead and come on and be a correspondent.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll post tomorrow during the day on X and on Facebook. We'll post the link for people who want to come in and join us, right, within the studio. And you can just listen in, or you can chat. If you're adventurous, you can be more and be a correspondent if you want to do that as well. Contact us if you feel like doing that. But at a minimum, make sure you join us tomorrow in some way and watch our live Friday Night Blitz episode. And again, that'll be starting at 9:00 tomorrow night. We'll go for about an hour and a half, right, Dan?
Yeah. Give people updates on scores that games we're following. Talk about some of the big plays from each of the games. We kind of, how it's played out, where we've focused on some of the tighter games, maybe some surprises that have happened. Last week was great for Brother Rice and Marist. So I'm sure we're going to have some tight games, this week as well, Joe. So get your information here at Varsity Voices, at the Varsity Voices.
At the Varsity Voices, we provide all the information you're ever going to need, especially for Friday Night Football in the Chicago Catholic League. So make sure you join us. All right. So thanks for joining us for this episode and listening in. Make sure to follow and like us on wherever you're listening from. And again, make sure you join tomorrow night and to our Friday Night Blitz episode and listening, get all the scores and updates and hear if our predictions actually are bearing out or not, Dan. But, as always, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.